Well, and whether you're going to add a carport, which in most cases, carport extensions are looking at extending the roof line out off of one or both ends of your building. You may or may not be continuing with the same roof line as far as overall building height or eave height of the building. But yes, you can do some things to make that transition easier. If you really think you're going to do this on the end that you're going to add on to, if you're going to maintain the same eave height, you want to have a double truss on that end. Uh, if you're looking at not just being a carport, but let's say adding on to that length and taking out that wall and potentially removing columns that were supporting that end wall. You want to make sure that those trusses are designed to clear span and that the columns that would have been your corner columns of your original build are sized appropriately to be able to take out your loads as you continue on down the building. Now, let's say you are going to decrease the height of that carport. You can have an extra truss added into that end wall at the height that you're going to continue out with that carport extension. Now, along with this, I'm going to throw out there is okay, let's say you're doing this because of budgetary constraints. You are going to be way ahead in the long run to borrow the small amount of money in proportion to the big project to be able to at least get that shell of what you're putting up done at the same time.
What is this? What is this? Where's all the money? That's as good as money, sir. Those are IOUs.
It's going to save you in labor. You're not going to have to peel a wall apart and attach to it later on. You only have to have product delivered one time. If your roof truss span is the same, you can get those trusses built along with your original set of trusses so you don't have setup charges and delivery charges for that. Uh, Even if you had to pay 10% interest for that, if you think you're going to be making this addition over the next 5 years, it's far better just to, get that up and
Do it. Do it.
do it now, outside of just the aesthetic looks of this. Now, if you're using steel roofing and siding, even if you have invested in really good paint systems like Kynar, there is going to be some small amount of fade. And if it's an SMP paint, which most paints are, over 5 years' time, there will be a noticeable difference in colors. So obviously, white is not going to show a fade, but even light colored, like a light gray or a sandstone color, those will be noticeable. And if you're into darker colors, it will really show. And people are going to know, hey, you added on to that. So you really take a look at what your end goal is and make a plan and see if it's something you can't figure out a way to be able to do it all at one time. Uh, yeah,
One second before we move off of that topic, Tyler, I sent an example image if you wanted to share that with the people so they can fully see what we're calling a carport. And just to add to that, if you are looking at adding a carport and you're going to add it at the same roof height as your existing building, I would just highly recommend do not waste your money putting overhangs on that end wall of the building if you're going to be adding on, because you're going to have to end up taking that off. Just another quick thing, if you're going to put a carport on an end wall, don't spend the money that you're going to end up having to throw away too. So that's just another thing. The other part to carports, I would say, is make sure that when you're designing it, don't just assume that you can slap walls on that carport as well and that it can support the loads of a wall after the fact. That does change the loads on that carport. So just to be aware, if you're going to add a carport and you think, well, I'm going to enclose this in the future, make sure that it is engineered for that change down the road if that's also something you may plan on doing in the future.
Yeah, and some really great points, Eric. And along with even enclosing that carport, um, but you can do some ugly things to your building this way. Let's say that you decide that you're just going to enclose one side wall and one end wall of that carport and leave the other side open. Now you're putting a load into that that is a third more than if you had fully enclosed that carport. So you can take and compound this situation and make it progressively worse depending upon what you're doing with it. So, uh, number one, thing that I can say is if this is a consideration, is talk to somebody who really knows what they're doing and understands the engineering principles behind it, so that you don't end up getting yourself in trouble later on down the way, or create a situation where you invest good money in something that failed.